What's up, fam? This is your boy Gerald. Sitting out here in this garage before I had dinner, mentally getting ready for the next week. How are you doing? I hope your weekend was well. I hope that you were able to take these 2 days to reflect, relax, replenish, to focus on yourself. And with that's easier said than done, because when you get in your rhythm, a lot of times you get on that emotional treadmill and it's kind of hard to get off of it because you have priorities versus time management. So, wherever you're at, in a town near you, in a city near you, in a state near you, worldwide, I hope you are making time for yourself. So, I'm sitting here sipping on my Dr. Pepper. And a thought popped in my head. And the thought was, think back now honestly think back to the investment of time that you focused on in regards to your emotional security. What I'm talking about, time invested in, may it be relationships, may it be expression, just the process. And look at where you are now. Now take that same mindset and transfer that in as currency. When you look at your emotional bank account, are you happy at what you see? Or are you looking at a notice of insufficient funds? Only you know this. And the reason I'm asking is, you notice the trajectory in the media nowadays. And we can go back, I'll be generous, I'll say 6 months. And there's a whole lot of people got a whole lot to say. But what I find in the dynamic, no matter what your position is, there's still a small percentage of ownership. And then on the flip side, because of people misunderstand what they're passionate about, there's a whole lot of deflection going on. You know what I mean? They gotta have the period on the end of the sentence, the exclamation point where needed. They got to be heard. You know what I find out? What I find very interesting? If people took that same energy and applied it to an introspective focus in themselves. I'm talking about you, in the real you. I'm not talking about the person that is the representative when you step out into the world. I'm talking about the you that is in your inner sanctum, where you call home, the intimate side of you. If people took that same passion and applied that to that person, they would have a lot of clarity. they would have more awareness. They would have finally what is required to have ownership. And this is what I'm alluding to. One of the things that I always do, and if you've been rocking with me for a while, I've echoed this hundreds and hundreds of times about myself. Next to my spiritual connection to the Most High, my second love has always been music. And probably just like you have your particular genre that you gravitate to. Well, for myself, even as a little boy, I always had a thing for R&B. And one of the things that drew me to R&B was the creativity. And what I mean by that is you had the art of the storyteller. So to the point that it was done in such a way that even to the first note cued by the record or the CD or how it's streamed, as soon as you heard that one note, it would trigger an emotional response. Well, I learned that at a very, very young age. And the second thing that pretty much drew me in was trying to understand what they were saying. Now, I was very young, so of course, with the metaphors and stuff like that, because back then, we're talking, my reference point would be the early 80s. But as I started to mature into my early teens, I found myself gravitating to what was the constant influence, and that was the recordings that my parents would always play. And then that would make me I found curiosity in music theory, how it's arranged and such. But I always circled around to what was written. And as I started to mature, when I went through my puppy love phase in my early teens, that's when the words had power. And I'll tell you what, still to this day, I truly believe if I had another life, I would have been in radio, because that was one of my dream jobs. I always wanted to be on air, because, like we have on TV, Beat Shazam. I would love to be on that show, because across the board, I'm pretty I'm pretty aware of what's out there. I always kept my ear to what was current and the backstories. So here's my point. So before I cut this video on and decided to speak from my heart, the song by an artist named Bobby Caldwell. He had a hit called What Would You Do? What You Won't Do. And in a melody, Do for Love. Yeah. But if you ever just took the time to listen to what he was singing, he was actually giving a blueprint to understanding for the end goal. But you had a lot of gifted songwriters back in the day that they mastered the art of emotion. They knew what to write, how to write it, as well as deliver or weave a certain outcome through the song. And unfortunately, that's almost a lost art in today's standards. I mean, you've got artists out there, from the neo soul aspects and stuff, and you got some up and coming ones they're doing their thing. They've done their homework. But it makes me wonder if music would be one of the first influences socially. Maybe that's the reason why the narrative that is being presented into today's society is the way it is. But to really peel the onion back, why is it that you have so much pushback on the one thing that everybody wants? But the missing piece is admitting what you need. You wasn't born on this planet. You weren't born on this planet to be alone. You weren't born on this planet to not be loved. And that is why it is important to communicate the things that matter most. But you know what's ironic though? It gets lost in translation because communication is the one art that never can be mastered. It requires practice. It requires transparency. It requires commitment. And we wonder why there's so much discord in today's society in regards to relationships. Why is it? It's easier to talk to people that is in your circle than the person that should matter most, starting with you. I run that back. Why is it so easy to talk to the people in your circle about the things that matter most when the person that you need to talk to the most is you? I know somebody's saying, well, Gerald, then that makes you crazy. No, it makes you crazy when you don't. And what I mean by communicating with yourself is being authentic, being transparent. How is it? We have so many people that suffer from mental illness, when I believe, and I'm not a physician, that a lot of that was propagated because these people needed someone to talk to, someone to validate them, someone to critique them respectfully. And we wonder why there's so many people clout chasing today. So, if we can agree on that, we can also agree that you deserve to feel emotionally safe. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be treasured. But see, you talk to some people and you're asking them the same things, and they'll look at you like you fell out the sky. they can't relate. And a lot of times they can't relate because that's not found in their environment. And sadly, that might not have been exhibited in their upbringing as well. It doesn't matter what their economic standpoint is. That's why you hear people and see people today that have everything they want, but would give it away for the one thing that they need. Who am I talking to? Because if these people had that one thing that they needed, they would feel emotionally safe. They could be themselves. They wouldn't have to worry about always looking over their shoulder or worrying about what was said in time past. Who am I talking to? So I was, like I said, I thought about Bobby Caldwell. If you've never heard the song, you've heard it. You, the melody is just as catchy and known as the lyrics. It's a classic. And yeah, what won't you do? What will you do? What you will do? Do for love. You tried everything. Yeah, that one. But if you listen to what he was singing about, he was also explaining a person that has tried and done everything they could, but the thing they needed to do to be loved. Well, family. You do know you can't buy love. And those that try to buy love, it's temporary. That's no different if you go and buy a trinket, a token of some sort. It's all fine and dandy in the beginning because it's new. But eventually, what is new will become like everything else. And also, it depends on the value system too. Because I've seen situations where you could spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on an expression, but what they treasure most is you took the time to do it yourself, which a lot of times is free. That's for somebody. But it's like you listen to a lot of these classic songs from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and you had people that were dedicated to the art of songwriting, storytelling, and that's why some songs are deemed classic, because a classic song sounds like it was just released the same day you heard it for the first time. It never goes old. It never gets old. Why? Because it was done to perfection. But it also shows how rare it is. But I'm describing you. You should have the same mindset as a classic song. You should see your uniqueness every time that you give access to someone or you put yourself in access into another environment by your presence. The value of what you bring to the table. But what is valued even more is the respect that you have for yourself. That's why when you see folks out there trying to do everything they can to get that attention, it's noted. but it fades just as quick as it was noted. And that is why now you have this mass shift in people's mindset to the point it is causing, to some may say, a social civil war emotionally, because you have those who will not change the mindset of what the status quo was. They realize that is not working. And they realize there's been a great abundance of that same mindset. And they feel that, hey, I'm taking an L. But see, that's how misery works too, fam. Because you have some people that don't want you to do anything. They just want you to be emotionally be frozen in time. It's like you are mentally doing time. That's why a lot of people, you will hear people say, well, I feel numb. I feel blue. It's just another day. But those are all illusions. And all those illusions always give way to the real things, the things that you've always needed, which requires courage, which requires you to acknowledge and make that aware, make that priority in your life. Now, family, this is done behind closed doors. Or when I mean by closed doors, this is done within yourself. But it will be felt in your environment. Why? Because the people that ain't doing the work will notice an immediate change. And I hate to tell you, they're going to tell you that too. The moment that you commit to yourself and say, you know what? I deserve better. Whatever that focus point may be. It might be your health. You say, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like this. I'm going this direction. Because you don't need anybody's permission to better you. You don't need nobody's permission. But you have those people that will criticize that because they don't have the fortitude to do it themselves. Oh, yeah. Well, who are you to say this? I'm going to say it because you haven't heard it. Because if you had heard it, then that means your circle is living the example, and they would want that first for you. But just as I've always said, your environment is a living representation of what you embrace in your mind. So if you got drama in your life, 9 times out of 10, it reflects the drama that's within your spirit emotionally. But until you have the courage to give yourself permission just to put your foot down, just to acknowledge what don't work, that storm, because that's all it is. It's an emotional storm. I used to speak about that a long time ago, when you're in your emotional storm. And for some that don't know what I'm talking about, an emotional storm is when no matter what the effort you apply, you get the short end of the stick. You can't catch a break for nothing. You may even hear people say, you just got bad luck. No, you don't have bad luck. You're just making bad decisions. And of course, when you are living your life from an emotional standpoint, you're going to do that. You're going to do that. But what's sad is your circle should be your support system. Your circle should be the first one to come to you and say, hey, What's going on? Why are you moving like that? And if you can't find comfort to be vulnerable in your circle, that ain't the circle you're supposed to be in. Let me put it this way. Because I hear people say this all the time. Well, that's my homeboy right there. We like brothers. That's my girlfriend right there. We go way back. But you don't tell them what you need to tell them. So in return, they don't tell you what you need to know. And you play this mental chess game. Well, I'll tell you what you want to hear, but not what you need to know. Then those ain't your friends. Did you hear me? If that person that you are claiming is your best friend and you cannot have a conversation that you feel insecure about with them, that's not your best friend. And I get it because you got a lot of people nowadays. Well, you got to watch what you say, and yes, you do. That's called discretion. There's also called being tactful. How can I turn to you for guidance if you've never been through it? This is like somebody that's suffering from, uh, let's call it spade spade. That's like somebody that has an alcohol problem. How am I going to seek guidance from someone that shares the same problem? Or never picked up a bottle. How can you respect that? Now, you can respect the intentions, but how can a person fully relate? That's for somebody. Because I got a feeling somebody's going through something pretty tough right now. And all you need, all you long for, is maybe possibly you just want to vent. You already know what you need to do. And I think that's a lot of problems. That's the one thing a lot of people do. They just want to be heard. Well, guess what? What did I mention earlier? Now it's time to maybe have that conversation with yourself. You can do that in one of two ways. Number one, whatever's bothering you, go get yourself a notebook. Find you a place that you can commit at least 10 minutes. Care if it's in your car. Look, use your cell phone. You got a notebook there. Write down the things you're having problems with. No matter what you convey, you use curse words, whatever. Write down what bothers you. And then get to a point that you stop. Close up that notebook and wait 2 days. Just 2. If you can't, at least give yourself, say for example, you're at work and you're going to do this. Now don't jeopardize your job because you're on your job. That's what you're making your money, pay your bills. But just say when you get home, when you get free time and you're at home, you're relaxing. You open up that notebook and read what you wrote. Now, here's the one thing that we all can agree upon. excuse my French. You know you can't bullshit yourself. You bullshit whoever who's in your audience, but you can't bullshit yourself. And I guarantee, after you read what you wrote, you're gonna already know what you need to do, or what you need to let go of. Who am I talking to? And I think that's one of the problems in society today. You got a lot of people that yell, that scream that they have common sense, but they don't have no compassion. And they don't have compassion because they don't know what compassion looks like, because they didn't have that as an exact. They didn't have that living example in their in their foundation. Just like a little boy, and he didn't see his father express himself. Now, or whoever the male influence was, whatever the behavior that was exhibited, the child is going to take on those traits. Same thing applies with a little girl. Whoever the female influence is, they're gonna mimic what they see until they understand what they do. Did you hear me? Because I know that just hit a nail for somebody. People mimic what they see until they understand what they do. That is no different why in today's colloquialism you hear the phrase fake it to make it. But guess what happens with an imitation? It is nothing but the flattery of the original. You are the original. You're not a carbon copy. That is why it's so important to claim you. Be comfortable in your skin. But if society tells you, nah, do what the Joneses do. If they say jump, you gonna jump. If they gonna do this, you gonna do that too. Who's that benefit? It don't benefit you. It glorify them, even in bad behavior. So to go back to Bobby Caldwell, what would you do for love? You tried everything, but you just won't give up. Something like that. Listen to just look at the lyric sheet, and what he's telling the story is a person that was so passionate about the wrong things, and all they wanted was to be loved. But guess what? You'll never know what love needed until you decide to love yourself. Even if that requires you to be by yourself. And see, this is why a lot of these campaigns out here get it wrong. And they say, oh, no, I'm going to do it this way if they do it that way. And unfortunately, there's a certain narrative that's been playing out for the last 6 to 8 years that's got people divided. And that's why I made this video some time ago called A Divided House Can't Stand. If you want a relationship and you want to have your happy ever after moment, that requires work. But you got to manifest that. And I know some people are going like, whoa, here we go. What I mean by that is, you got to believe in things you can't see. You got to have the same energy that you have, like the air that you breathe in. You can't see it, but you require it. You know what you want, but you got to move like what you need and know the difference between the two. Because you got a lot of people that say, I want, I want, I want. And them same people fall short each and every time. And the sad thing about it is the faces change, the economics change, the demographics change. But until the person in the mirror is priority and that changes, the fall is coming. And this is what I mean. How many of y'all, some of y'all gotta think back. You knew that one person that they were a pain in the ass growing up. And they seemed like they got away with proverbial murder. Everybody that had access to these people knew. And the people that did not could not see that. And it seemed like with all the bad behavior going on, these people kept winning. And the people that were doing the work, they were like, wow. But then, when you least expect it, something life-changing happens to them. Some people say, oh, that was just karma. No, that wasn't karma. That was divine intervention. Because when you break the original cardinal sin, do unto others as you have those do unto you, you got to pay that back. That is why when people use the term karma, the one thing that breaks karma is love. Because we move on two different frequencies, love and hate. High frequency, low frequency. And we attract what we are. Just think back. Think back to the things you like, man, if anybody actually knew, boy. And then when you get to the point you didn't forgot about it. And then when you least expect it, bingo, something happens to you. There's a setback. There's a loss. There's a major disappointment to the point that it shakes your core. It's energy. That same energy is the lesson that you should have claimed and owned, processed it, learned from it. And the reward is wisdom. But you got some people you can't talk to. You can't talk to them. You ain't talking to me. I'll never make that same mistake. That's why you always hear people say, never say never. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't spite, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. You hear all those parables and sayings. All those are just metaphors of divine intervention, just watered down so a person can understand what is being conveyed. That's all it is. So, if you know what you long for, I'm not talking to the representative, I'm talking to you. The person that you have to battle with emotionally behind closed door. I'm talking to that person. Oh, I would do, if that was me, I would do this. If they had did that, I would have did that. Really? Really? Why can't you have that same passion in investing in yourself? Why is it that people don't do that? But they got the energy to get online, and that's why you got these internet bullies out there. You ever look? People are entitled to their opinion, but ain't nothing funny, ain't nothing more funnier than when your paths cross, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way. No, I was just playing. I ain't mean nothing about it." Y'all done seen that play out, or depending on how vindictive and shallow it is, it may be displayed on the internet forever. Because you do understand, it doesn't matter how many times you tell somebody to cease and desist, copyright strike, guess what? It still lives in the internet. It's still going to forever be on the World Wide Web. I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna tell you something. Just a caveat, because I'm thinking about this. So Friday, my DNA results came back, and I went through Ancestry, and I'm reading it because, as I told you guys on my backstory, the real reason I wanted to do my DNA, because when I was in the service in my early 20s, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any children out there that I did not know exist. And it's funny because you got men running around here talking about like John Wayne. Well, whatever happened, whatever. Nah, that's cowardly. That's being a coward. I'm gonna just leave well alone. No, it's still your seed. And I think through the years, that became like a phobia for me, because I was like, because you look on the internet and you look on TV, and there's always stories once a year about somebody that was searching for someone, unbeknownst to them, a lot of times. And unfortunately, because we're talking about the world, you do have some people that ran away from their responsibilities only to leave the plight of that child. That's cold-hearted. It's cold. And this applies for men and women, because, how many times have you heard stories? And this is not pertaining to me directly, no. But I'm just speaking. We've heard stories of people that the mother said, "Well, I'm not ready to be a mom. I don't want to carry the child. I'm going to terminate the child." How your position is in regards to that, that's the woman's responsibility. That's her right. It's her body, even though she wouldn't be in that position if it wasn't for the potential father. So there should be some discussion. now. But I remember one time I used to listen to Steve Harvey a lot in the morning. He used to have this show called Strawberry Letter, and people would call in and they would write about whatever was going on, and they would to get advice. And there was a story about this couple where the the guy did not know, the girl pretty much had another life, and he was not aware of this. She was pregnant. She came to the guy and she said, "Well, look, just out of respect to you, I'm not carrying this child." He never had a child. This would have been his firstborn. So, reluctantly, he said, "Well, his position was carry the child. That's all you gotta do. Carry the child. He'll do the rest." And the lady's letter was like, "I'm not doing this." And she had made a decision that the day that she was going to go to get the termination, that was also the last time she was going to have contact with him. So pretty much she was going to ghost the guy, right? Couldn't find out. A year and a half rolls by. Hold on. He get a text message from the woman. And the woman was like, "Hey, how you doing? Can we get together? I need to talk to you. I wanted to catch up." And he said of course, he had feelings for her. So he agreed. And so they met up, and he's happy to see her because, like I said, the guy had feelings for her. He was attached. And while they were there, wherever they were at, she said, "Well, look, long story short, um, I didn't terminate the child, and I'm putting you on child support because the baby's yours. And oh, by the way, I was married too, but I'm divorced now." So this guy felt a certain kind of way. Felt a certain kind of way. So what ends up happening? The guy, um, he ends up having to go to court. Come to find out, the woman he was involved with had given the child to the grandmother to raise, and they had grandparents' rights. So he had to go to court for all that, and this had dragged out for like several years. But at the end of this, what ended up happening is the grandparent got sick, and either the grandparent got sick or the grandparent died or something. So the child was getting ready to go into foster care. So meanwhile, the mother was not being cooperative. She was being vague and all this stuff. And he had spent all this money to get his child back. In the end, he did. And the roles reversed. And the lady was like, "He ruined my life, and part of me should have never said anything. I would still have my marriage, and and it was just plain. It was just downright selfish. Just like, God, man. But you have some people that walk around this planet that on the outside they got it going on, but inside they just ugly, you know. But to go back to what I was initially saying, if you're in a place of maturity now where you know that you deserve better, What's keeping you from it? What is that you know that you have to acknowledge it to change it? What is it? Because when you look at it from a bank account standpoint, all that energy that should have been focused on what you should have done, you should have a big emotional balance. Because guess what happens when you invest in yourself? You have peace. That's for somebody. I mean, it just seems like all you hear about is people in toxic, this is toxic, this is narcissistic, this is that, all these low energy descriptive uh, justifications, but you never hear anybody take a position to be forthright and say, well, you know what? I own that. You know what? I didn't understand then, but I understand now, and I'm not willing to invest in that anymore because I know what I deserve. And you take that position, be prepared that your life is about to be overhauled. And everybody that shares the sentiment that you had previous, guess what's going to happen? They're going to walk right out your life without your doing. It's like proverbially somebody lit a big old bundle of sage on your life. And all that negative energy can't get access to you, no matter how hard they try. Now that's a sad thing, because when you're operating from um, a low frequency, a low emotional frequency, prepared to be frustrated. Be prepared for that. You got some people saying they ain't talking to me. I'm smarter than that. And guess what happens? Anything that you touch is going to fail. So from a doctrine level, you've heard this. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. So guess what? They see themselves out of your life. Just as quick as they met you, just as quick as they're going to disappear. And you know why? It's because they got to give way for the people that rightfully will treasure it. So I remember a long time ago in my story, and I had this question on my spirit, and I'm going to wrap this up. And this question for about almost 3 months was on my spirit, and it was, can a man be made new? And I was reading uh, the spiritual doctrine, and I can't remember where I saw it, but I got my answer was right there in a passage that talked about that, and pretty much through a parable sense, it was basically saying, pretty much was saying, the moment that you take a position of transparency within yourself, all the woes and burdens that you carry will fall from you, ultimately making you new. So in other words, for those who don't have a spiritual foundation, the moment that you connect to something greater than yourself, that is the moment that your life as you knew it will be unlocked. And usually, your life just overhauls. It just does. I am a living example of that. If someone had told me that everything that I had experienced these last decade was to prepare me to be where I am right now. Right at this moment, if someone said, you know, in 10 years, you're going to be living in Hawaii, I would have looked at him like, what are you smoking? I would love to visit there one day, but I'm a realist just like you. No, that's my reality. Step out that garage right there, and I got 4 pine trees right there on my property. Palm trees right there. I'm like, whoa, what? Never had. I mean, it's the little things we take for granted, you know. But damn, last night I was decided to go for a walk in my neighborhood, and we have a main drag that takes us out of the area of where I live to the highway. And one of the known flowers that grow here is the Palmyra flower. That's the flower that you see anytime you think about Hawaii. You think about the image of the Hawaiian woman. She has the flower in her hair. There's 4 different types, but that's the most known one. And I got a stretch of where I'm at, and it's like the main boulevard for like a good mile on both sides of the street. You got these trees full of these flowers, and there's just the fragrance is in the air, you know, and it's just think about your favorite incense or car air freshener, you know. Think about that one that you're like, God, that's what it smells like outside my garage every day. You know, so that right there keeps me grounded because I am living my dream. I was like, well, maybe because I'm just a Pisces dude. We've always been drawn to the ocean. I mean, hell, I came from Virginia Beach. I came from the Atlantic. Now I'm in the Pacific. You know, and I'm grateful. And I can't wait to show y'all. But anyway, I done ran my mouth too much. That was for somebody that's going to click on this. They've been looking for some validation. And I hope it did. Because you deserve to smile again. But none of that happens until you decide to put you first. And that doesn't mean being selfish or out of character. But maybe you might need to get conditioned to say this beautiful word called no. Because you know one thing about that word, the power of no? The power of no means under review. It does not mean forever. Maybe you need to change your standards and see your value because you're worth it. Be blessed.